Food deserts, poor nutrition, dilapidated neighborhoods, low standard living. It's a given that Rochester, New York has an ongoing issue of poverty, structurally designed in all honesty, and constantly, barriers continues to perpetuate a dichotomy in Monroe County's economy, where wealth is substantially occupied by white privilege, while poverty is occupied by black adversity predominantly. So, what are we to do? The objective is a collective, a unified effort to shift the perspective of false reality that we are on an even playing field, because historical intergenerational trauma is epigenetic, and it is time to heal. Community building is an organic skill that continues to be stagnated by socially engineering guilds, protected by structural racism shields, government-sanctioned ills and horrors that keeps children from eating a decent meal. Rochester, it is time to stand up. The struggle is real. Home of the great ancestor Frederick Douglass, one of the primary passageways of Harriet Tubman's Underground Railroad, and also the place where Susan B. Anthony sparked her women's suffrage movement. Rochester, New York is steeped in monumental history. However, one can't argue its scarred past that deeply impacts the city's current situation, and that is poverty. There has been several efforts in the past where nonprofit agencies were created to address this endemic issue, but they only amounted to programs that did not take the systemic inequities in consideration that's directly built into the many policies that operates as the crux to every institution that impacts Monroe County at large. Hence, the creation of the Rochester Monroe Antipoverty Initiative, also known as RMAPI, a community-wide effort aimed to reduce poverty in the Rochester and Monroe County region by 50% over the next 15 years. The question is, how did RMAPI come together? What sparked this movement in the Rochester community?
Essentially, it launched, or at least the concept for RMAPI launched in the beginning of 2015. The United Way was looking to diversify its funding streams, and primarily it was an attempt to ensure that we were bringing dollars into the community to support programs that were very instrumental as it relates to reducing poverty. So it was nurse-family partnership, building healthy children, parents as teacher. It's considered home visitation. Peter Carpino, who was the former president CEO at that time, Fran Weisberg was a consultant, went to Albany with the state assembly majority leader Joe Morelli, essentially to get $25 million for 5 years to bring the program to scale. Now, ironically, it was the governor's staff, the second floor, that said, you know, with the issues you have in Rochester, you need to think bigger and bolder. You need to be, you need to think broader as it relates to what you're going to do to resolve poverty. Don't come to us with a program when in reality, you have a real challenge in Rochester that you need to really be able to approach from a systemic perspective. Had it not been for the Area Community Foundation issuing that report in 2013 that really flashed a light on poverty in Rochester, we wouldn't be where we're at today as it relates to, the work that we're doing to remove poverty.
What is this report that Dr. Brock is referring to? December 2013, the Rochester Area Community Foundation and ACT Rochester published a document titled Poverty and the Concentration of Poverty in the 9-county Greater Rochester area. In that report, it was highlighted that Rochester is the 5th poorest city in the United States.
Children are connected to families, so we really want to get to what the root, why so many children are in poverty. They are linked to their families, so if the children are in poverty, then the family is in poverty, because the child obviously cannot work or, find the means to work themselves out of poverty. But the process, they came back to Rochester and formed a task force Bob Thompson from Excelis. There was Marlene from CFC, who is really good with facilitating meetings. She's a black belt. There were a lot of work groups formed, and within that process, there were people in those work groups that are impacted by or were impacted by poverty. Out of that rose community building, trauma, and structural racism. They really felt that in order for people to move out of poverty, we really have to address those three guiding principles.
Be it housing, be it jobs, be it education, be it safety, be it judicial, childcare, transportation, whatever the domain area was or the issue areas were. These particular barriers are things that we need to address irrespective of the domain by which we're looking to address them. So as opposed to treating them as a program, to say, okay, here is our anti-poverty program, or here, no, these are things that have to change the very structures and the mindsets that are responsible for these issue areas.
The RMAPI in its early days used what they call cultural brokers, people who are intimately connected with the community to help sort of like translate some of what people were saying. And those cultural brokers, I think, were chosen because of their awareness of things like structural racism. And then you had groups like Facing Race, Embracing Equity, which I co-chair, which also felt that that's something that should be in the mix because of the fact that there is a connection between structural racism and poverty.
I think it impacts them on all fronts: education, government, entertainment even, and military. And in those ways, what I mean is our children are going to school in an education system that does not look out for their well-being. It does not consider their past and their past traumas that they have gone through genetically as well as currently.
We think about it, America was built on racism, right? And so in every area, the policies that are there are racist policies, sadly. So not necessarily that the individual is racist, but the policies are racist. So in healthcare, we see that all the time. When we think about the curriculum that med students are using, when we even think about the dummies or the cadavers that they're using, right? Everything is naturally of the majority population in America. It's not normally seeing people of color.
At one point in time, we didn't want to touch that subject. We didn't even want to deal with it because we didn't want to confront it. But the reality is, in order for us to make progress, we can't ignore those issues. We have to deal with those issues. And those are things that's going to take time because it requires not only structural changes in terms of policies and practices, but we're talking about mind shifts changing. We're talking about behaviors shifting. And that's not something that's going to happen overnight.
When I came out of prison, I had what they call the prison mentality. It's where you don't trust anybody. You're always looking over your shoulder and you are protective of yourself.
And you see a lot of people coming in with, the same scenarios or worse scenarios or drug problems and that kind of thing.
Trauma's been our missing link for so long. It's very easy for folks that are outside of the system to kind of look at and go, I don't understand that folks know what they should be doing. They know they just have to go get a job, they just have to find housing, they just have to stay clean, they just have to take their medications. Why can't they do this?
It takes time for us to teach youth, that are prone to violence, to turn things around and go an opposite way, you know what I mean? Because for me, yes, I spent time in the penitentiary. I've had those kind of situations arise. I was on the street and the level of different things. And I mean, growing up, I'm about to be 50 in 6 months. And I look back on my life and I say, wow, I made it.
Let's say a family has a natural disaster, a farming family has a natural disaster, there's a massive storm and wipes out all the crops. It is traumatic, right? But it's an act of God, so you can, the way you deal with it, eventually the ground dries out, you can replant crops, you can rebuild. in situations like poverty that we see in the urban landscape of Rochester and many urban centers around the country, there are systemic factors that are at play. There are policies and procedures and practices that are put in place that perpetuate the situation. So no matter what you do, you can't get ahead. And that exacerbates the trauma.
I've been here all day just to find out that they never extended me. So now I have to worry about what I'm going to do, where is my baby going to sleep. You know, I shouldn't have to be like, here, can you hold on to my baby for a little bit till I find a job, till I find a house. You know, I shouldn't have to part ways with my daughter.
You know, I grew up in a rough area, and my mom had a bachelor's degree and still couldn't find work, and I was still poverty, you know, so it was rough, you know. I hope to go to school and do some things where I ain't gotta be like that, but it's, you know, it's hard out there, especially being a single parent. It's hard. It's hard even if you have a good job. You know, you still may live in the ghetto somewhere and be struggling, you know.
Unless you're giving us jobs, you're not helping us. And when I say jobs, I mean paying jobs. Unless you're finding us a job, you're not helping us. I mean, you got the food pantries and stuff, they help. The shelters, they help, they do. I'm not saying nothing helps, but all these little programs that they're doing, it's not really helping us. Like there's not a lot of security deposit programs anymore. And there's not, like the work experience programs, the job searches and the job training, all that, that's cool and all that, but most of these people that go to them things be knowing how to do the stuff that they're going there for. They just need a job. So unless you're having a job fair with real people who want to hire real people, like on that day or whatever, you're not helping.
One of your friends, you get ready to go to middle school, they playing with a gun right down here, he get his head blown off. You know, and then you go to middle school and that's one of your good childhood friends that you went to elementary with, that you grew up together, and then they do roll call and you realize that he's supposed to be in your home base, you know, and you trying to be quiet, but in the back of your mind, yo, it's hurting you to know like, yo, listen, my childhood friend ain't never coming back. We would have been in the same home base. We were just talking who's gonna get the most girls, and yo, no one in this class, they mark him down as absent, not knowing that he's permanently absent.
By addressing trauma, it could affect how a person or even persons could gravitate from a feeling of despondency and mental health depression to areas of self-determination, which would empower them more from the situation that they are in to address these issues themselves and to know how to brace up against it. For example, the importance of really rallying oneself to fit them for employment, for educational returns, and for simply developing where there was not in the past a sense of community.
I tend not to use the word poverty, we're in wealth creation.
Neighborhoods in which we work together, we live together, we play together, we network together.
Everybody's voice has to be part of it. That's the way people feel part of a neighborhood is when what they want to see happen in that neighborhood is included.
The most important system to build positive mental health and to build wellness is the neighborhood.
Whatever community we're in, we need to care about it. And if we care about it, we ought to be doing things to help enrich it.
A lot of people have opinions, but they don't put in the work to change.
We complain oftentimes about the kids, this and that, and how bad the school is doing, etc. But until you actually get in there and be a part of it, you shouldn't have anything to say.
By educating, it helps them, for one, many times end up with higher paying employment, careers, and the like. Many times they go to better schools. Many times they help their children be better educated. They eat more healthy. They live more healthy lives, so exercise and things of that nature.
Yeah, real stuff that has been done by people of color. This is how they worked into building this great country. And this is how they worked into building these great neighborhoods. Because everybody understands the before and after pictures. What happens is people forget there's a before the before. let's remember who we are, and more importantly, Sankofa. Let's take the best from the past and move it forward as we evolve.
You know, we hire young people here at Teen Empowerment. Paying young people to do this work is a valuable thing. I think it speaks volumes about what people need to do in the community, especially when we're talking about involving folks who felt marginalized and disenfranchised in other ways.
It's very important to work with our youth. So that could be mentorship, that could be long-term, consistent relationship building.
You know, we have these bridge generations that some of the OGs represent, you know, so they understand kind of, you know, the street life that some young people can be drawn to, but they also bridge because they grew up under those traditions as well. So I think that they have a big role to play in kind of bridging those two languages and doing that intergenerational closure.
Anything that's outside of the scope of those guiding principles or anything that doesn't reinforce them, we're not going to endorse it. So if it's something that, if a person is looking to align with RMAPI, the question becomes, what are you doing to advance the guiding principles?
Structural racism, addressing trauma, and community building. The three guiding principles RMAPI has adopted to push the much-needed effort forward in a county that desperately needs a systemic revolution. And through the collective impact model, which is an innovative and structured approach to making collaboration work across government, business, philanthropy, nonprofit organizations, and of course, citizens. The ultimate goal is to achieve significant and lasting social change. Poverty is not an overnight fix, and there are current efforts that existed prior to RMAPI coming into fruition.
We think it's critically important that young people, children are ready for school. And so through our Head Start program, that's what we focus on achieving. And we measure progress at 3 points during a particular school year, at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. And we measure it using an evidence-based measurement tool that looks at various dimensions of development. And we find that our graduates from Head Start, when they get ready to go to kindergarten, are equal to or above their peers, even the peers that have gone through some other preschool program.
My daughter, she's 2, but by the age of 1, my daughter can sit here and she'll tell you 1 through 10. My daughter, she knows her colors. You know, my son also, you know, and not only that, my worry was if I bring my baby into school that early, because it's a school, it's not a daycare. It's a school, they're here, they're learning, the state pays it, you know. And I was like worried more so like, will my baby interact with other babies? Like, how would it be? And you're allowed to come in here and check on your kids if you know you want to or whatever, however many times you want to. And I used to do that. I was one of those concerned parents, like, nah, I'm about to stalk my baby. And I would actually come and I would check, and my babies would be interacting perfectly. And that's one thing that I really appreciated about the program.
Someone just comes in and they're at a point now, I don't know what to do. I'm in crisis. It could be that I'm about to be evicted. I have no food in the home. I have found out that my brother has just gone to jail and I now have to take in his 6 kids, and I have no idea what my resources are and how I'm going to do this. They're going to come down and talk with our case managers. We're going to assess and figure out what's the best place to kind of link them and get them connected so they feel supported.
When I got here, they made you feel welcome. They didn't look at you as most people would say, as a bum. They look at you as a human being, another man. They treat you with respect in that. And they have a lot of services that I didn't know about that I was going to need.
I can say anything from hygiene all the way to mental health. They provide you with counseling. One-on-one, you can go to any one of the counselors here. If you have any kind of problem, they keep it confidential.
Emotionally, it really brings you down because you don't ever want to be down in that position. But being in the right facility with the right people, it definitely has helped a lot.
It's a lifesaver. It's a lifesaver, and you hear other people's situations. You mingle with the people, you hear other people's situations, and give you a sense that everybody is going through some of the same things, but some things are worse.
How would programs or shelters like this
be a stepping stone to get to the next level. That's exactly what the shelters do. They serve as stepping stones.
So we've been able, in terms of what we've done, is to really gain a hold of some of the critical points in the neighborhood in terms of we're working on the freedom market. We hear a lot of negative things about what's going on with the corner stores. So one thing we know, somebody from other countries can come in and start businesses here. Of course, the people who lived here can actually operate their business. Freedom market, attracting other investment into the neighborhoods. We also own the Speedy Slice down the street, which is a partnership with the Sam Fantuzzo and the Salvatore's franchise, that you do have responsible franchise owners who want to come back into the neighborhood and do work, bringing a quality product. We work with other funders who see this is what our vision is, that's neighborhood based. Farish Foundation, the Greater Rochester Health Foundation, Rochester Area Community Foundation, and other grantees that we work with, different partnerships. We work with certain universities, the University of Rochester, where we're co-researchers, co-authors, and co-implementers of the work as we study ourselves.
I'm hoping that by this program and many other things that they get in school, they'll have the opportunity to love to read, to be inquisitive about what the future may bring them, and it can take them anywhere they want to go.
It definitely improvement, you know what I mean? 90%, definitely. They're reading above grade level. At first it wasn't, so you know, it's good to give back.
I think it's great for us to come in here and show the kids that we care and that people are interested in what they're doing and trying to help them learn to read and have communication skills.
And sometimes I'm dog tired coming here from working at night, and sometimes honestly you just don't feel like doing it, but when I think about what it means for them, I gotta show up.
We're honored to have this vital and effective program, and every year I have more students who want to be tutored than I have tutors to tutor them. So I'm desirous to reach more tutors. Let's change the report card on Rochester School.
As you can see, Action for a Better Community, Catholic Family Center, Northeast Area Development, and School Number 17's Help Me Read tutoring program are strong examples of anti-poverty efforts in Rochester. Unfortunately, the problem outweighs the services, and there is a dire need to have all hands on deck in order to at least reduce poverty by 50%. There is no silver bullet that can kill this oppressive beast, and that's why working as a collective is vital to Rochester's and Monroe County's future. So, how will RMAPI implement collective impact?
RMAPI is a collection of institutions, agencies. It's about policies and practices, not programs. It's creating like the principles and the standards for everybody to adhere to. We're not a program provider or operator, right? For us to kind of like create the conditions for the change, set the context for the change, and make sure that we have everybody and all voices at the table. So that's the collective impact approach. The other piece is the funding. We're not a funder. The funding is administered through the Regional Economic Development Council. We set the priorities, we help set the standards for how funding should flow in the community, but we're not the person that's distributing money. Our job is to influence the major funders in town, so to influence a Danny Wegmans, to influence the Regional Council, to influence the governor, to influence the mayor, to influence the county, to influence the education, RCSD and other charter school operators, to influence them to say these are the areas by which you need to coordinate and braid your funding streams, or here are the gaps that we need to figure out a way to fill those voids.
The question is this: am I part of the problem, or am I committed to finding solutions? For more information or to get involved, please visit endingpovertynow.org. That's endingpovertynow.org. The struggle continues.